I don't know if you get a chance to read the news because you're up here so early, but just the other day, there's 3 drunk men on top of Caesar's Palace. And the first drunk guy goes, "The wind currents at this time of year in Vegas are amazing. You could jump off the top of this tower at Caesar's Palace and you won't hit the ground. The wind current will pull you right back up." Second drunk guy goes, "You're drunk and you're crazy." So first drunk guy goes, "I'll show you." Jumps off the top of Caesar's Palace, highest tower, about to hit the ground, wind current pulls him right back up. Second drunk guy goes, "That's amazing, I'm gonna try it." Jumps off, splat. Right in front of everybody, blood, guts. Third drunk guy says, "Superman, you're a jerk when you're drunk." My name is Paul, but I'm better known or called as Superman or Super Trades. And my motto is to find momentum before it happens. I tend to be long biased, but that doesn't mean I short. But in a market like 2013, it's definitely been a great market for what I specialize in. I'm originally from the East Coast, from Rhode Island, like Riggs out there, right? I am a CPA by trade. I not only was a CPA, when I graduated college, Arizona State, I went to one of the top accounting firms. I was a CPA. I was a controller and a CFO for many companies from Fortune 100 to smaller companies. Very successful corporate finance career. Last company I was at, they were never profitable. In 4 years, we had 4 years of profitable growth. I'm a finance and accounting guy, but I have a sales personality, so that's how I always describe myself. I've been trading over 15 years, since my senior year at Arizona State University, 1997, and my posting style, which can be dramatic, energetic, entertaining, annoying, was actually inspired by a trader during the internet boom in the late 1990s, early 2000s, Tokyo Joe. Now, he got in some trouble, and I don't subscribe to what he did, but the way he posted was funny. It was entertaining. It was factual in many cases till he veered off track. But there's a book on Amazon.com, Scam Dogs and Momo Mamas. If you want to read about really when Tim and myself, where we grew up trading, there was a group of these internet message board posters that kind of inspired a lot of the people like us that you see today. Fun fact, I was almost famous. Before I finished college, I had this vision, revelation that I was destined to be a movie star. So I went to first I went to New York, and it was more theater. Then I went to California, and I was trying to be an actor. You can see I still had crazy hair, even more so back then. But you could understand this was the 21 Jump Street days. Many of you are too young to even know that. But I did do a Miller Lite commercial, and that's on your bottom left hand corner. It was a Halloween commercial. That's me, the guy on the left. And then I was on an episode of the Munsters TV, the Munsters Today, which was a remake of the black and white Munsters. So I played Marilyn Munster's boyfriend. I picked her up for a date. Great experience, great life experience, but that's a fun fact you may not know about me. My strengths are I find momentum before it happens. And I'm going to go through specs. Last year, as I stood at this podium, I went through Live Deal, which is, again, and many times throughout my career, I've been behind some of the biggest momentum trades, and they happen every year. That's not all I do, but those are the home runs. I think you'll see my batting average is pretty consistent as far as finding momentum stocks and long stocks before they happen. I'm strong with earnings and value plays, giving my background in finance. It's easy for me to get into these SEC filings and read them. Theme plays, like today's a great example, and Tim's 100% accurate. What I find is many times on the down market days, these small cap stocks, whatever theme is in play, will continue to do really well on the long side. And that's very common, and I wasn't surprised at all to see all those China junk stocks popping. Low float stocks, everyone knows I've never met a low float I didn't like. But I'm going to talk about it. I think it takes experience and time to trade in and out of these things. I talked about annual monster small cap movers. We're going to talk about one today. I also have a momentum charting strategy, which tells the strength in the long move, when to get in, and what the downside, what your cut loss would be how to know when the long ends. And that's from momentum charting, and I teach that as part of my service. I have a comprehensive strategy: long, short, value, momentum, options plays, just about everything. And I'll get into that a little more. But many people think I'm just some long guy that just goes long stocks and tweets a bunch about, but I have a much more detailed, comprehensive strategy, and those that have joined my service can attest to that. And one of the things that I preach all the time now is discipline rules. And listen, I'm not 100% accurate. I'm far from it. Nobody is. I make mistakes. I appreciate Tim this morning saying, hey, I broke my rules. This is what's not to do. When I break my rules, and I'll give you some examples, I lose. When I'm disciplined and I follow them, I have great trades like Specs and others. This year, I think all of you that probably have noticed, I've got over $750,000 in verified gains. Good year, and I'm proud of it because this is also the year that I started teaching. So I've been very devoted to my subscribers and my service, and at the same time, still being in the trenches, still having a very solid year. Specs. Find momentum before it happens. Specs opened at $6.01 on July 8th of 2013. And that's my first buy alert to my subscribers on Specs was $4.81 a few days or the week before. So, and then it's in the fives and it gets up to 6. And then I wrote an article, why Spherics could double or more in 2013. And most of my articles are detailed, fact-based. If I put a target range out there, it's because I have a methodology behind it. You may not agree with it or not, but I definitely try to put as much detail into my articles. So $6 on July 8th, why Spherics could double or more in 2013. On July 31st, okay, Specs is now 1067. So I don't know, I think that's a pretty solid call, $4.81 to $10.67. My rules would say you got to take some profit up on the way up, those of you that got in the original with me, but I still thought there was more to the story. And yes, you can say sometimes the titles of my articles are a little dramatic. How Spherics could be valued at $14 to $61 per share. However, I didn't just put that as a target range I picked out of the air. I looked at other patent companies out there. None of them have any revenues yet. They're all doing what Specs did, which is gather some patents and suing people. But yet Specs also connected with Rockstar, which is the company formed by Microsoft, Apple, and a bunch of other people that bought the Nortel patents when Nortel went bankruptcy. That was a huge development for me, and that's what garnered my interest. And I know that even from $6 to $10, listen, at $6 I knew this thing was getting shorted, and then let alone at $10.67. And this is the loneliest period of time for me at this point because it's dead. It's a POS, Superman, pump and dump, blah blah blah, and yet, what happened on a Monday morning, they came out and said they're suing T-Mobile, that they have the patents for geolocation services, which could locate where a cell phone is. Obviously, that gives the impression that they can sue the other carriers. 850,000 shares outstanding, baited shorts in all the way from 6 to 10. That day, Specs hit 2786. I held the stock, I held most of my position. I took partial along the way for 35 days. So those people that will say, yeah, Superman, he buys a stock, he tweets, he sells. I held this stock for 35 days, okay? And I think people had plenty of opportunities to get on the way up. I think my sales were in $16, $17 range. $18. I think I only had a few sales in the 20, but this thing went up to 27, and then it held in the low 20s, high teens for, I think, almost a week or so. So this is an example of finding momentum before it happened. $4.81, no one cared about specs. I did the research, got in the SEC filings. They talked about this North-South company and the patents they were getting. I tried to go online and search what kind of patents we're talking about, and I wrote these articles. And then many of you have seen $420,000 in verified profit in specs. And specs, finding momentum before it happened. Specs had a low float. And I think those of you that like to be short biased, it's good to learn both sides. And I short stocks, believe me, but it's good to learn how both of us think, because you have a low float stock, and no, they didn't have earnings, so shorts automatically say, this company is garbage, they have no revenue, they have no earnings, but they look at trailing 12 months, they look at the past, they refuse to look at the future, which is what kills them, because there's a story here. Whether you believe or not, Specs is going to get any revenue from their patents. When they teamed up with a big name like Rockstar, at a minimum, it gives the impression that they have the potential to generate revenue from their patents, and at the time, they still only had like 850,000 shares outstanding. I'm not even talking about the float. The float was like 700,000 at the time. So big name partnership, as I mentioned, and at the time there was, patent themes were still prevalent. You saw big runs in VRNG and VHC and some of the other patent plays. So there was a theme here. So deadly combination to try and short something like this until it plays out. Now, and I appreciate Greg, LX21, who's in a subscriber of mine as well. He made money long and he made money short. He didn't do his shorts till the day it went, as you people would say, parabolic. But he even respected the story enough to say he understands these criteria, and this is not something you want to be short in the early innings. But that kind of gives you the methodology of what was behind this trade and why I knew it had the potential to be one of the annual what I call super monsters that I try and find every year before they happen. And it was widely known and discussed and disclosed in our articles that eventually Specs was going to have dilution, and obviously it was going to eventually pull back. But the point being, it was an incredibly low float. They had a future vision. Now they had a huge big name partnership, and they had a theme going. Tens of thousands of dollars in verified profits besides myself. LX made about 11 grand going long, but I think there's about 30, 40, 50,000 just in examples here of other people that made money off the Specs trade besides myself. I started my Profitably subscription service and joined Profitably around Thanksgiving last year. To Tim's credit, he was encouraging me for several years to be a teacher, and I think it's one year we both happened to be out here, and we met and we got to know each other, got to respect each other's style even more. We obviously teased each other or went back and forth at times in the past, being long and short, but we always had a mutual respect for each other and both of our styles. So we got to know each other, and my only regret is I didn't listen to Tim sooner, because I find teaching and seeing other people make money off my strategy more rewarding than making 400 grand on Specs. And it's become a passion of mine. So I definitely thank Tim for that, and that he believed that I would be a very successful teacher. Since I started my service, there's been over, $1.5 million in verified profits from people that do go on Profitably and verify their gains. This is an amazing slide. Since I started my service, we analyzed 136 of the buy alerts I put out. 7 of them went up 200 to 400% from the alert price. Now, this is not me talking about I bought the stock and I sold at the exact top, okay? Those are my trades that are verified and profitably. This is an example of the opportunity from the buy alerts if you're disciplined enough, and my subscribers are disciplined enough to plot profit from them. 7 stocks went up 200, 400% from the alert price to their high after the alert price, and sure, they eventually you're going to pull back. 30 went up more than 75% from the alert price. 47 went up more than 50% from the alert price. The next two are compelling. Average high for all of these was 55%. So 136 stocks, only one didn't go up from the buy alert price. The average, they went from the time I said that's buy alert to the high they hit before they peaked was 55% on 136 stocks. I know I'm a numbers geek, but I think you guys can get the impression this wasn't, oh, just a few stocks went up because I tweeted them or whatever. Because the average time to get to the high was 40 days. So I don't have people that love me that much that are going to buy up stocks and hold them up for 40 days at 55% gain. You know what I mean? So the cool part for all you fast day traders, in my chat room I call them crackheads. 40 of them took 1 week or less to get to the high. So it's a great blend of faster day trades or swing trades, which tend to take a little longer and tend to be a little more stable. This is just a screenshot of the spreadsheet I have out there on the internet, but it's going to be public, and we're gonna track this, continue to track this stat. Okay, I want to just give a couple examples of students real quick. This is a great story. Shayla Trader, she inherited about, she inherited about 65 grand or so and started trading on her own, and she almost lost it all pretty rapidly. I think she was down to about 15 or 20 grand of that insurance, which is devastating, obviously. And then she joined my service and she made $65,000 in 5 months from implementing my strategy, my buy alerts, as well as in the chat room. Red Rocket is a great story. He's a student. He never traded before in his life since January 1st. Turned like 6K into 40K in the first few months, really applying himself. Has pulled back a little because he's learning some good newbie lessons about following rules and how options, I think, are a rarer strategy. But I think he has potential to be a super trader, and he's definitely an up and coming. Huh. Did I hit something? I don't think I did. Oh, there we are. All right, Professor. This guy followed me for 10 to 15 years back from the Lion.com days. He's in my chat room. He's one of the moderators. He's a master chartist. He's gone, about $60,000-$70,000 in verified gains on Profitably this year. And he also has some really nice calls of his own in my chat room. And he also is great at teaching and likes to help new people as well. And he's great at charting. Incredible Trade followed me on Twitter since 2009. Really, named himself after a superhero because of me. And it really tries to imitate the strategy. He's had a great year as well. He's up over verified. It was 80, 90K this year. So, like I said, it's great to, personally do well, but seeing that you can impact the lives of other people is very rewarding. But I'm going to preach forever that you must be disciplined and you must follow rules. 3 types of trades I have: day trades, chart trades, momentum chart trades, and swing trades. They can sometimes be long or short, but I think it's important that you know what kind of trade you're in, especially if you're going to be a long, and that you have a strategy to do it, and my strategy does teach that. I've mentioned valuations, fundamentals, chart earnings theme, current events, turnaround situations, reverse splits, low floats. Also implement an option strategy when the opportunities present itself. It's a rare thing for me. I also have what I call IPO tracker, where the Super Pro members get my research on upcoming IPOs and the IPOs that track throughout the year, because many times these IPOs come out, they're hot, they flatline or they go low, but then they just come raging back, especially in a market like this. Low float reverse split tracker. Video lessons I offer, as well as premium research. But here's something I don't know if you know about me. I'm mainly NASDAQ, NYSE, and Amex. I rarely ever like play OTC and pink. I do like Vuzi. That's one stock I like because I can get my arms around that story. But I'm more for the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, and the Amex type stocks more than you'll find me carrying. Like sometimes, like Tim will get ticked about asking about Columbus Day in the market. People start like flooding me with OTC stocks. I'll just get equally as annoyed as he will get with questions like that. Because, I don't know, that's why you people all short a lot of them, because a lot of them are junk and they just get pumped up. But there are examples of companies that, like this year, PSIX was an OTC company. It's gone from 10 to 50. I made like 15 grand off of it, like from 30 to 40, the 40s. But there are cases, so I do keep my mind open that there could be legit companies out there. My chat room has, the great thing is I've traded, been pretty popular on the line.com for many years, then my blog and Twitter, and I've got a bunch of veteran friends, and we could never stand the chat rooms that we were in because we didn't like, they weren't moderated well, just had people, you know, being disrespectful, unprofessional, etc. But the good thing is, when my veteran trader friends found out that I was starting my own chat room, they offered to come in and help. And so in my chat room, it's not just me, but there's tons of talent. You have, you know, Professor, who I mentioned is a master chartist, Rich Jr., small cap stocks and sectors. You have momentum long and short like myself, with Find Alpha, an incredible trade. Many know B-Man Alerts from Twitter. He's a current events, he's a current news guy. That's really about when news comes out. He's very good at it, but he puts alerts in the chat room as well. Options, I have Blind Squirrel, who's just an options guru. OTC promotions even is a veteran friend of mine in the chat room, Casey Printers, and that does come up there, and we do talk about it. I don't necessarily always play on myself. And then a short selling wizard in Tangus Khan. You gotta love the names like that we all give ourselves. Okay, find momentum before it happens. You got to research constantly. I'm a little bit different, obviously, in my strategy and my style, and I respect every trader up here because they're successful. But I do know everything about a company as much as I can when I get in a trade, what they do, what their financials are, especially if I'm long. Because if I go long a stock, you have to anticipate that some short seller or some Yahoo on Seeking Alpha is going to try and attack it. And the same thing if you go short a stock. You should know the ins and outs of, and I appreciate how Tim went to Yahoo Finance, like ALTI, why is it up? Does anybody know? I think if I'm a short seller and the stock goes up 2 to 6, I at least want to do some research and know, hey, could this go to 10 plus because they have a company changing event? Don't just automatically, and I'll speak to you short sellers, don't just automatically say it's a pump and dump. It's a piece of crap, because there are companies that have events that happen that change the dynamics. Most of the time it is a pump and dump and they do crash, but don't be lazy. Do research, news and charts. Get up early. I obviously get up very early during the trading days, but you want to be a super trader, you want to be the next Tim Sykes, you've got to get up early and be disciplined. I think something you can see about everyone up on the stage, we're hard workers. We put in a lot of time with this stuff. Yeah, we fly around and we like to, travel, but we're working constantly. We're always attached to the internet. Have a disciplined set of rules that are strictly followed. You don't want to do that, you won't be here next year. You won't be in the game. You think I'm joking, and you're lucky that you have people like me and all the other speakers that made the mistakes that are now creating rules out of it. But I'm telling you, if you take anything else away, and this is from the person they say, my critics will say, I'm a pumper, I just want you to follow me. No, I want you to be disciplined. One of my rules is don't chase me. Don't chase anybody. Don't chase a stock if it's too far above the ladder. I don't care if it's Superman or here it is. And I think people like my subscribers, I See Lights, Stock Bunny over there will tell you that I'm always yelling at people in the chat room. And I tell them, you don't follow the rules. Don't whine to me. Don't say like, why does this stock go down? Well, where'd you buy it? Oh, I chased it. I didn't have a mental stop loss. Gordon Gekko, don't whine when you lose. Don't cry when it hurts, right? Wall Street too. Okay, Super rules, I'm gonna go over them quickly. These are just some of my super rules. Do not chase stocks. Like I said, you miss your entry, there will always be other stocks to play. Whether you are a long trader or a short trader. It's not like you're gonna wake up and be like, wow, there's gonna be a drought on stocks for the next 6 months. There's always stocks in this small cap world to trade. When you have profits, whether you're long or short, always take some 25 to 50% off the table and manage the rest accordingly. You'll never go broke taking profits. And if a stock keeps going in your favor, great, you're still making money. Stock goes against you, you're not stressed about it, you're stress-free, and you can very well still come out profitable on the trade. Don't buy a stock just because you read a post on a message board, Seeking Alpha article, some stock guru picks it. Get in the habit of making sure you own and you're responsible for your own trades. Do not boredom trade, forcing interceptions. There was like, this has been an amazing year. There was like months where I was trading, 5 to 20 stocks a week, but this is typically a slower time of the year, and I'm not going to force trades. Like, I'm not a circus clown that I'm just going to juggle and amuse people to show that I can scalp trades. I'm going to wait for my spot and wait for the right trade. Use stops, whether mental or real. I'm more of a mental stop person, but you've got to be disciplined with it. I don't trust putting in stocks because I think they try and take them out at times, but you have to be disciplined. And like LX said, when you start rationalizing, changing your mental loss, you're in trouble right there. Don't invest more than you're willing to suffer in a worst case scenario. I have an article about position size, but the easiest thing I'll say is, you've got to know the stock you're in, whether you're long or short. Let's say you're short ALTI this morning, okay? Tim shorted it at 650 or whatever, 640. You've got to have, what do you think's the worst case scenario in that stock? Let's say it's 50 cents. That's your mental loss. 50 cents times how many shares? What's the most pain you're willing to suffer? That's how you kind of build a framework, or I tell people to build a framework for position size, because you're going to have losses, and they're going to go against you. And so that's just one basic methodology about that. Be responsible for your own trades. Do your own research, said that. Don't automatically dismiss criticism against your position. I remember back with MTSL. Now listen, I was right on the stock. It went from 2 to 5, but he was right that always had a tough time holding his gains. And you automatically want to just get intense and and dismiss it, but don't automatically dismiss it. Look for truth in your criticism or critics. Don't set money targets based on positions. Like, I want to make 15 grand on this ALTI trade or whatever you're in. Have a plan that's not based on what you must make. Greed kills. Be conservative, especially you newbie traders. Paper trade, small position sizes. This is a journey. This is not a sprint. There's always going to be trades. The SPEXs and the EFUTs and the PDOs are the exceptions, not the rules, but they do happen every year. Okay, I'm going to go over earnings plays real quick. I recommend you keep a list of stocks, whether you're long or short portfolios. I love Yahoo Finance. Know when stocks are due to report. It's easy to look up, call the company. Usually Yahoo Finance has it, or the company will put out a press release when they're going to report. Many of the stocks that are expected to do well will move up in the earnings, and you could make stress-free money before they even report. Know what the prior year comparables are. If they did 10 cents EPS in the last year quarter, but then this prior quarter, they only did 5 cents, and now they're up against a 10-cent comp, that's not a good scenario. If they had a loss in the last year prior quarter, and they just did a turnaround this direct quarter, and now they have great guidance in the last press release, well, that's a softball down the middle. That's a pitch right down the middle. But you've got to know what the prior year comps were. Review the last earnings report before the new one comes out, and know sympathy companies that reported strong earnings in that sector, both that would move up if this company reports earnings, and to get an idea of how the sector overall is doing. What do I look for in earnings plays? I think sales Sales growth, 10 to 20% is good and can move a stock for sure. 20% plus is awesome. GPS, gross profit percentage should always be improving unless there's a good reason. And you find all this in the press release. And if you don't know what gross profit is, one of the best free research sites is Investopedia that I like to recommend. Very simple, plug in gross profit, it'll explain everything it is. Net income EPS, again, 10 to 20% growth is good, 20% plus is great. Have they swung from a loss to a profit? Sometimes a company can go from big losses to the first, even if they do 2 cents of EPS, and that's a big deal because it's a turnaround, and especially if they make good comments. You also have to look for one-timers. One-timers are an earnings type that is not going to reoccur. So they won a legal settlement, they got an insurance payment, they sold an asset, but it's not part of their normal operations, and you'll usually find that in the press release. But that's not a good reason to go and buy a company with high EPS, because unless they say this is going to continue, chances are it's going to pop and get shorted back down. Sequential growth, not only look at year-over-year growth, but how did the business do compared to the prior quarter, unless there's seasonality in the business. Seasonality is when, say the summer months are stronger for outdoor companies as opposed to winter months. Run rate, is this new EPS, they did 10 cents. Does that mean at a minimum I can multiply by 4 and they're going to do at a minimum 40 cents EPS? I could put a 10 to 20 P on it, and there's a vision for that company. P's 10 to 20 for normal boring stocks, even that are growing in this environment. For the Teslas, the Facebooks, the crazy ones, the tech, they can get 50 to 100 on their PE. Obviously, the lower the float, the better. Another important part of press releases is, there's a proverb that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the stock perishes. So they can have a good quarter in earnings, but if you've got to look at the forward comments of the CEO and the CFO, which is found in the press release and also in the MD&A section of the SEC filing. Are they being vague? And yeah, we hope to keep growing this company. Or are they being very specific? It's like our Europe division is increasing sales and China sales are going to grow, and we're going to grow. We're going to even give guidance. Sometimes they'll also be so conservative, you have to decide, did they just warn that their business is going down, or are they just being super conservative? It's a general comment. The economy is so uncertain in all parts of the world, we're going to try and do our best type of language. Might not necessarily mean they're going to be down, but it's also, I don't like management that just are not bullish to some point. Did their backlog and pipeline increase? That could be in the press release or the SEC filing. So if they had a great blowout quarter, but their backlog's down, that tells me it's not going to continue, and shorts are going to figure that out, and longs are going to take profits. Did they have new business, new division driving growth? Are there macro sector comments? Like, what's going on with Taser right now and DJLY and a couple private companies. This whole thing about police wearable body cams are big, and all the CEOs are talking about the demand for growth they're seeing out there. That's a macro sector comment and an example of it. Theme plays. Chinese stocks this morning. It can send a group of stocks moving, even stocks that are garbage. Always be reading about current events. Always be reading about new technologies. One of my favorite words is disruptive, transformative. When people talk about new technologies, try and get ahead of the theme. I nailed MTM, machine-to-machine technology, which is, we all know what the internet is. This is going to connect machines to each other, and it's one of the next big booming areas of tech. Camp and SWIR were in the 8s. I called them as buy alerts. I think first quarter, they're now in the 20s. ESYS, I did buy alert 381. I think it's in the 9s right now. All the same sector, all the same theme. Try and get ahead of the theme. Sympathy plays. But I will say this, if a company has good earnings or a company gets a new contract, and then all the crackheads, all the day traders, all the Twitterites are going to try and run up every company that they can even remotely connect to that story. That's when I look to short. When I get so annoyed, it's like, and they'll be like, Superman, what about this stock? It's like this stock, and it's like such a reach. That's when, let them get the sympathy trades up that have really nothing to do with that one company's good news. That's when you pounce on those stocks, because once the leader dies, or even before the leader dies, those are going to go down. Theme examples: oil, gold, social media, hurricane, biotechs, etc. Keep portfolios sorted by themes. And lastly, low floats. High risk, high reward. They're very illiquid, and they're for small positions. I mean, ALTI, I've got to check the float, but that was definitely trading on Tim like a low float this morning. I mean, I even stood out of my chair when I saw how that jumped into the sevens like that. That traded like an extremely low float. Can't have big positions in them. Never chase them. The quality of the news is critical. I consider 2 million in the float or less ultra. You don't even need much volume. If a stock like that gets good news, I'm telling you, like, I would not short those stocks until they are parabolic, like specs in the 27s. 3 to 5 million in the float. If the news is quality, it will act like an ultra float, absolutely. And 5 to 10 million in the float, they need solid volume, or they will not perform quite as well. But you'll see when they do get the volume, they can be bought up big time. Keep portfolios also sorted by the float. When I don't follow my rules, I talked about EAC. I called it at 17. I wrote a Seeking article on Seeking Alpha on it at 17. It hit 29 in 2 weeks. I sold some, but not nearly enough. I think I was up 60, and just all my greed. But that's really, that's an example of not following the rules. I mean, how stupid does it sound to not be happy when you call a stock that goes from 17 to 29? When after you sit back and think, like, what an idiot, People, like, who wouldn't love to have a stock that went from 17 to 29 in 2 weeks? MTSL broke a rule. You hold through an event, whether it be earnings, whether it be an FDA decision on a biotech. You better be prepared for the worst case scenario to happen. I told you what happened with MTSL. I nailed EPS to the cent. It would have kept going up, but they lost a big customer. XGTI didn't have a mental stop loss on the remaining shares. I did follow my rules. Originally called it in the 5s. It hit a little over 7, took some profit off, then didn't have a mental stop loss. And that's what happens, again, when you don't follow the rules. When I do follow my rules, I think there's over $100,000 here in verified trades. QKOS was a China stock that I did take profit on the way up. CCCR was one-off IPO tracker. I knew it was coming as an IPO. I knew it was coming for months. It kept getting delayed. I knew the day it was coming. It was like a 1 million float China IPO. I think the next day it went ballistic. I was able to buy around the IPO price of 650, stress-free. The next day it blows up. AMAVF, that was like, I called that stock, that was a 3D printing stock on the pink sheets. I called it at 27 the beginning of the year. I sold, the first time I sold at like 40, then I got in, I think like 78 to 90, and eventually hit 120. I could have just went long AVF and gone to the beach all year, but that was a 3D printing company. PRCP did a Seeking article, Alpha article on it. That was, they had a 3D scanning product, and that did well early in the year. PSIX was originally on the pink sheets, but a quality company that uplisted, made 19 off that. And WPCS was a stock that I had a strategy on. It did a reverse split. There was a pattern in the chart. I'd buy in the low 3s, and unless there was news, you sell in the 4s. I think I did that 2 or 3 times. And the only way I was going to change that was if they keep saying they're going to have a shareholder value proposition, which could mean merge with another company. They haven't had news yet. So, but these are examples of what happens when I execute well and I do follow my rules. So that's my presentation. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to take them. Anybody? Go ahead.
What's the next company you're going to write an article for
I will say I have a few in mind. That's what I'll say to that. I have a few in mind, a few that I think are worthy of it, and I think a few that I think are underreported and they just don't get the word out. But that's a good question, and one of my new criteria is going forward is how passive is the management. I can't stand passive CEOs. In fact, I think they should be held accountable with their bonus, their salary, their job, if they're not getting their story out to Wall Street. If they have a good story, marketing, investor relations, I think they should be fired, just like a baseball coach should be fired if they're not getting the story out. Other question? How often do I hold through earnings? That's a great question. Never a large position anymore, MTSL, but it depends. If I got in a stock really low, okay, and I followed my rules and I have so much cushion in the world, and I know and I really have analyzed the EPS report, then I would be comfortable with a small position. If I'm just buying into earnings, it's got to be something I don't even care about. It's more like a lottery play, I'd say. And it really all depends on the quality of the company. But the thing you get with me is I do that research, and like MTSL, PDO, I was analyzing the range of the EPS, and I'm relatively good, and I'm not 100% accurate of getting in what the range of the EPS is going to be. And you can look through SEC filings and you see how I do that. But good question. You have a follow-up? What's that? Yep. No, that's a great question. I think, you know, right after earnings season ends, I start looking at how they set themselves up for next earnings season. And I might sit on it and wait for it to pull back a lot. But that's what I'm talking about doing research. Like right after, you know, they report earnings, maybe they got a pop and they're going to fade back. And then I will stock that stock. And as long as it doesn't move, I'll wait and then I'll take a position. But it comes down to knowing what they said about the future, what the forward comments were by the management. A couple months, yeah. If they're a company that puts out news a lot, yes. If they're a company that just puts out a quarterly release, then as long as it's not jumping into earnings, I'll get in like a month or so or a few weeks before. And a lot of times I'll be, here's why I'm buying this stock. This is what they reported last time. This is what they said. This is what I think, if they do what they said, the EPS range could be. It's not 100% accurate, but it is, you know, a lot of times those stocks will move up into the earnings report.
Question from Bob Garrett. How often do you and your team alert stocks per month on average?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, this year it's been 5 to 20 stocks a month, I'd say. I mean, I did 136 over 12 months, so I'd say 10 to 20 stocks a month, depending on what's going on. But it's a pretty active, and it's been a great year to be active. But like I said, during the recession, I was shorting REITs. I was shorting all kinds of stuff because that was more where my type of stocks, you go after shorting. But it's been a very active service so far.
Question for me. How do you deal with, obviously you've had huge winners where the stocks triple, quadruple, quintuple within a few weeks or months. How do you deal with stocks that just don't do it? Stocks like XGTI, if you could talk about that for a second.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. XGTI what they did is they IPO'd at 550. I called it at 550. I averaged on 535. It hit over 7. My mistake was I sold partial. I should have, if I didn't sell all of it, I should have had a stop loss around $6. No reason in the world not to do that. And I had weeks to get out at that point. But I beat myself up in the sense that I analyzed it thoroughly. What went wrong with this stock? What did the company do wrong, and how is that going to change my methodology? Like XGTI, they have a shady history somewhat, and they have things to overcome. But they needed to get these FCC certifications. But they and then came out and said they were going to raise money. So that was a change in the thesis. And you've got to take your losses and take your mistakes and learn from them, and sometimes change your methodology, how you pick stocks or how you trade stocks in the future. Awesome.
One other question: how do you live? Tell us something about like how Superman lives with all your money and stuff.
I love to travel because I'm originally from Rhode Island. I met my ex-wife at Arizona State, which tells you I like warm weather, but she was from Minneapolis, so I'm based out of Minneapolis. Therefore, whenever I can, I'm usually traveling because I love to go to the warm weather, mostly domestic. Go back to Scottsdale, love Miami, New York City, but I love to travel and trade stocks and meet other traders now. Never been a big car guy, but I just bought a Maserati, and it's pretty fun to drive. But I've never been this big, car guy. But I think I'm more like to travel, and I like to see my friends and family have a good time. Like I've been able to help some family members that had a couple hardships. I'd like to take my friends and make sure they have a good time, and I think that's the rewarding part of it.
Cool. Oh, wait, question.
You said you sort your portfolios. You said you sort your portfolios. How many categories are you tracking? You said
that's
and you have low and low cap. Small cap.
Yeah, I mean, you can do as many as you want in Yahoo Finance. I think I have 20 themes or sectors, and then I have low floats. There's a great website, lowfloatstocks.com, I think it is, where they usually update what they are, and you can copy and paste those in a Yahoo Finance portfolio.
Thanks.
But endless. I mean, and then the favorite ones, you just click on the portfolio and see if there's news out that morning.
On your stocks, how do you set your price targets? Is it based on resistance or how?
That's a great question. My price targets are either set on if it's earnings driven. I always like to provide a thesis and comparable PE ratios. Taser has like a 60 PE ratio for what their forecast is right now. So if I was comparing that to another stock, I might not even use 60, but I say, okay, this is getting ridiculous. But if I'm trading, a stock that's a biotech stock that is profitable, cancer stocks have this kind of PE, and you can get a price range. But the only reason I'll put a price target out is if I can support it like that, unless it's a chart play, and then I'll usually, it'll be based on the chart, and I'll have a mental stop loss that I give people to get out.
Question from Julie Verhage. It was a great year for the market overall this year, which helped stocks run. What do you see happening in the end of this year and next year?
Okay, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. Julie, it's a great question. In my chat room, I'll call that a crystal ball question. But I do appreciate that kind of questions. My thoughts aren't accurate, but I do think this debt thing is going to work out, and we're going to have a little bit of a year-end rally. Next year, not so certain. It's really going to depend on growth and really what happens with the debt and China's economy that you've got to track. I think saying what's going to happen next year is a little too far out. I do expect to get some debt deal done, and then you saw what happened when they thought we had one. Market went back up 300 or 400 points. November, December, typically our time for small cap stocks to do a little rally. So for our world, I anticipate, barring some unforeseen macro event, that we're going to have a good end of the year, and we'll see what happens next year. But good question, Julie. And I think reading current events and reading Bloomberg constantly to see what's going on, you've got to be aware of that, because you could be long or short of stock, and it could impact you.
One quick question. What, talk a little bit about the industries that you think have the most investor appeal or momentum appeal in the coming months and years. Because, you mentioned some stuff, but if you could just go over, like, what really gets, momentum? Because you seem to have a knack for it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's a good question.
What has legs?
This M2M theme is not going away anytime soon. In fact, General Electric even has a commercial on YouTube on it. There's still a lot of small cap stocks that haven't run with that. And I think the leaders could actually even get a little crazy next year as that kind of connects. I mean, they're calling it a whole nother internet, but it's just machines are going to talk to each other, refrigerators, industry machines, vehicles, and that's one that's still going to be hot. Obviously, if we get any new 3D printing stocks, people check their brain at the door, and those are going to be long stocks as well. I think a lot of the cloud software companies that IPO do really well. People still have this bullish viewpoint on cloud software. And then anything kind of new internet, social media that does make it to the public arena, you've got to keep your eye focused on those types.
And then Tim, he likes his primary scan criteria is, percentage gainers, because he's looking to short them. What is your primary scan criteria? Is it going to be percentage gainers, volume, specifically looking for news?
That's great. Yeah, I do many things when I get up. I search all the news for my Keep Yahoo Finance portfolios. There's some news services. Check Twitter. Check what some Twitterites are posting that usually posts news things. I have chart scans that I do according to my momentum chart criteria. And then I'll have earnings plays that I'm expecting and coming. So it's kind of like a multifaceted offense. Different plays in the playbook, but you've got to be up early so you're ready for all of them. Yes?
Question from Buck O. Do you have a favorite broker?
Right now, I was an old school day tech guy, so a legacy now at TD Ameritrade. I like interactive brokers for when I shorter options, and I personally have never had a problem with customer service. I've met some people here, like the Centerpoint guy. I'm going to check that out. But I've always been a simple two-broker guy. I'm actually still a one-screen person. I have a big Thunderbird Apple display at home, but I don't know. I just get those people that had 10 screens. I would just get annoyed and wouldn't be able to keep my focus on everything. But so yeah, I think there's it depends what you're looking for. For what I do, those brokers have been fine. I'm going to check out Centerpoint, some of the other ones that people said at the conference, but those are the two brokers I currently use, and they've been okay for my strategy.
Hey, it's Red Rocket back over here. I just wanted to give a big shout out to Superman and all his picks. I started trading for the first time back in January. Started real slow with about $6,000 in my account. I was able to grow it to about 40K with his picks. Recently, I've had a little bit of a pullback down to more like 25, and I've noticed it's due to not really following his rules and his strategy. But I mean, it's been unbelievable. Just every single stock he's picked, except for I believe one, has gone up. And if you just stick to the rules, don't take too large positions, and try and cut your losses, and take half off when you're up. It's just a guaranteed winner. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I just want to say thanks, Superman.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Wait, one more.
What tools or websites do you use for those momentum scans?
Well, Yahoo Finance is a great tool to create portfolios in for free, and they have news. They also have the Seeking Alpha articles. Listen, like it or love it, even successful shorts like Tim and Nate pay attention to Seeking Alpha because you have to in this day and age. So you've got to check out Seeking Alpha, but you've also got to look at sometimes who's writing the article, how many articles they have, how many followers they have, before it's just an article saying this stock's going to 1 million or whatever. There's a lot of free charting sites out there. I use stockcharts.com personally for all my charting, but it's not the only one. Until someone gives me an endorsement deal like Nike, I'll just say there's other ones out there. But and I think lowfloatstocks.com. In fact, all the news like Bloomberg. You guys. I do Google searches for keywords: transformative, disruptive, technology. I'm always kind of 3D. If 3D printing stocks in play, get up every morning, Google news for 3D printing. See if there's anything out there that's out there. But good question, and I think those are some of the key ones.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to piggyback Red Rocket. I'm Icy Lights. I've been there since day one. It's been like a break-even year for me just because it's been kind of a learning curve and everything, but really, it truly is unbelievable what numbers he's putting up, and it's almost really everything that he touches turns to gold, you know, kind of deal. And really, it just comes down to following the rules and just being disciplined, and then that's how you're going to make money, really.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I'll say, listen, it's been a good year. I never worry about, am I going to find longs that go up? What I worry about is, am I going to be disciplined in how I trade them, and are the people, my subscribers, going to be disciplined? And I don't mean to sound cocky, but Tim can tell you, for years, I've been pretty good at finding longs that go up in any kind of market. But the question is, am I going to trade them? And that's what, and it's good to have other traders to hold you accountable. Hey, sometimes Tim will text me to be like, what are you doing? He's like, how come you haven't sold the rest of the stock? And you should have used each other in this room to hold yourselves accountable. Like, I almost had to run up here and stop pushing buttons when Alti, got up. I almost was going to tweet that it's a garbage stock, so it would go down this morning. But it's good to have friends like that hold you accountable in this room as well. Icy Lights is great at that. Rocket is from Minnesota. And I'll be tough with the people that I give my personal time to. I mean, I'll be tough with them. It's like, you didn't follow rules. Don't whine to me. But I'm glad that you're saying you're learning from it, and you take that stuff serious.
So thank you again, Superman.
Thank you.
Give him a big round of applause.